In this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to make chicken homemade. So I'm going to be doing one batch of chicken homemade. In my food processor, I have a Cuisinart. It says that it's an 11-cup food processor capacity, but really it processes only about 6 cups of the homemade food well. So you're just going to have to check with your food processor to see how large it is and what it can take. Because mine is a 10-11 cup. It processes well if I do 2 pieces of chicken breast and 4 or 5 pieces of chicken thighs, plus my organs, which is the chicken liver, plus egg and fish. Okay, so depending on how much cat food you want to make will depend on so depending on how much food you want to make will determine how much to buy. So because I'm only going to be doing one batch, I know that my food processor takes 2 chicken breasts and about 4 or 5 chicken thighs, 1 package of chicken liver, 1 egg, and some fish. So in my food processor, I'm going to be putting in the chicken. The reason when we're doing chicken homemade, it's really important that you use white meat and dark meat because we want to have a balance of the fat content in the chicken. So I'm placing those 2 chicken breasts inside. I did cook all of this up at 400 degrees in the oven with a little bit of water in the pan. I did not add any spices or salt. If you want to, you can add a little bit of salt, but otherwise do not add any spices whatsoever when you're making your homemade food because this is for your baby cat or your adult cat and it's not human food. Okay. So I have my chicken thighs with skin. I'm going to leave the skin on because this is a fat component, which is very good for the cats. The chicken homemade is considered a complete meal because it has meat, organs, fat, all the components. So I'm going to be leaving the skin on. I'm going to be putting those inside. Mind you, this is all deboned. Okay, so make sure that when you're making your cat food, you make sure that to remove all the bones. If you want, you can cook up a whole roasting chicken, and in your food processor, you're just going to have to divide to make sure that it's about 50% white meat and 50% dark meat. So if we can zoom in here on the camera, we can see that my food processor is about, I'm a bit closer. You can see that my food processor is filled just about to the top here of my blade. So I know that with this particular food processor, when the meat fills up to about the top of the blade, that's when I know that there's enough inside. Now I'm going to be adding just a little bit of the chicken fat that was here in the pan that I cooked up. I'm not going to add very much, just a couple tablespoons, because I already have the fat from the chicken skins inside there already. Now I'm going to get my chicken liver. So this is 1 package of chicken liver. Again, you want to make sure that all the chicken is cooked completely through and the juices are running clear. So with my chicken liver, everything is nice and clear. It's fully cooked. This is 1 package. A moderate sized package from the grocery store. Ideally, if you can also add chicken hearts in here, that would be great. If you're making 1 batch of chicken homemade, then cook up about 1/3 or half of a package of chicken hearts in with your 1 package of chicken liver. Okay, so I'm going to pour all of that in. I want to use all the juice from that because it's all extremely nutritious. So my chicken liver covers up pretty much almost all of my chicken. And when we're making chicken homemade, we're using ratios. And so the easiest ratio that I use is just if your chicken livers can cover the top of your meat, you have enough chicken liver. So now I'm going to be adding an egg. I've soft boiled these particular eggs, so I'm going to be adding 1 egg inside of my batch here. And then I have some canned salmon, so you can use sockeye salmon. I have pink salmon right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using about 1/3 of the can. So I'm just going to be scooping that out, okay? And basically you want it to be about the size of the palm of your hand. I have fairly small palm of my hand, but that's about the size that I want in there. I'm also going to be adding some of the juice in here, okay, because all of that is extremely nutritious for the cat. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is add a little bit of filtered water. Whenever you're making cat food or whenever you're giving your cat water, you always want to make sure that you give them filtered water. Filtered water, the reason being is because if cats are given tap water has too many minerals inside, and the minerals can cause crystals in their urine. So you want to make sure that anytime you're giving your cat water that it is filtered. I do not recommend using distilled water because it doesn't have any minerals. So your cat does need to have some minerals in the water, just not a lot. So I have my Brita water filter. I'm going to be putting in a nice splash of water. I'm going to be adding a little bit more, but I need just enough in there so that I can start rendering this down. So I'm going to turn my food processor on. It has a tendency to splash, so I'm just going to put a towel around it to make sure that there's no backsplash, and I'm going to turn it on. It there and open it up, and if we look inside, it's a nice thick pudding consistency. So that's exactly what you want your homemade food to look like. Now there's a big chunk of chicken in here that has not been rendered down by my food processor, so I'm just going to give it a hand here, open it up, and then we're going to process that again so all of that gets pureed inside. Okay, so I'm going to start that up again. And again, when we look inside, it's a nice, thick, beautiful pudding-like consistency. I still have another couple chunks there. I can feel them, so I'm going to let it go again one more time, and hopefully all the chunks will be completely pureed and rendered down. Okay. So once everything has been completely pureed, oops, looks like we still have a chunk in there. I'm just going to see what that is. Again, it's a piece of chicken, so sometimes you will get those chunks of chicken in there. I'm going to put that back in. We're going to do it one more time. And at this point, when everything has pureed completely, then you want to take everything out and measure it to see just how much pureed meat you have, because depending on how much you have in here will determine how much you're going to add of your fish oil, your bone meal, the calcium, and your vitamins and minerals. So I'm just going to let that go one more time. Okay, that should do it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be measuring everything that's inside, because I need to know just how much I have in here in order to figure out how much I'm going to be adding of my fish oil, calcium, and bone meal. So I'm just getting my spatula here. I have a liquid food cup. It's measuring cup. It's 2 cups. So I'm going to be adding this in here just to see how much we have. Okay, so that is just about 2 cups. Okay, so that's 1, 2, and it's really important that you do this, especially the first few times when you're making cat food, because not every food processor is alike, and the ratio of how much bone meal powder and vitamins and minerals is really, really important, because cats' diets and health is they're quite finicky about making sure that they have just the right amount and not too much and not too little, because if you have too much or too little, it could really compromise their health and create a lot of problems for them. Okay. So it looks like I have about 5 cups here. And there's my cat meowing in the background because he can smell that I'm making a homemade food and he wants some of it. So once your cats start eating the homemade food, they really do start to love it and get used to it. And they know when you are making it for them, their health is certainly a lot better, and you can be rest assured that the food that you're giving them is healthy and it doesn't contain any preservatives, which is great. So, all right, so I've cleaned out my food processor fairly well here, and I have 5 cups. Exactly. Okay, so what I'm going to do now that I know that I have exactly 5 cups, I'm going to pour all of this back inside the food processor, and then I'm going to be adding the appropriate amount of vitamins and minerals. Okay, so all that goes back in there. When you're making chicken homemade, you can, purchase the entire chicken. You can purchase chicken breast, chicken drumsticks, thighs. I prefer to use the boneless chicken thighs and chicken breasts, just because it makes things go a lot faster. When you have a full roasting chicken, it takes quite a bit of time to debone it. So, all right. So now that I have my 5 cups of pureed meat in there, I'm going to be adding my fish oil and vitamins and minerals. So for every 2 cups of pureed meat, you're supposed to be adding 1 teaspoon. So because I have 5 cups, I'm going to be adding just a little bit less. So I have, and I'm just using a regular teaspoon here. So that is 1, 2, and I've just emptied the bottle there, so that's pretty close to about a half a teaspoon that I've put there. For my bone meal powder, I have, make sure that you have accurate measuring spoons. I have my bone meal powder here, and make sure that you are leveling off completely. So for every 2 cups, you're going to be adding 1 teaspoon of bone meal powder. So that's 1, 2, and now I'm going to be doing half, because I only have 5 cups. And there's half a teaspoon to account for the 5th cup. And then my vitamins and minerals. So I have that here in my jar. For every 2 cups of pureed meat, you add 1/4 of a level teaspoon. So that's 1, 2, and I'm going to do about half here to account for the 5th cup, because I don't have quite 6 cups. And there's about half there. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is turn my food processor on. I'm going to let that go one more time. once that has been thoroughly processed, your homemade chicken food is complete. So at this point, what you want to do is start packaging it up. Make sure to give some fresh homemade food to your baby. And what I like to do is I like to use glass mason jars for storage. I use the full cup size because I have multiple cats that I feed. And so just taking the jar, I'm filling it up. And then after you fill these up, they can go into the freezer and you can take them out and defrost them and then give them to your baby as a meal. Make sure that this doesn't sit in the refrigerator for more than 2 or 3 days at a time. If it does, please discard it. You always want to make sure of food safety. And that is how you make chicken homemade.